And good afternoon. Welcome to the booth with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590. Thank you for making us part of your day. My next guest is the Chief Deputy for Stoddard County Sheriff's Office, Mr. Andy Holden. Chief Deputy, welcome to the booth.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Chief Deputy, first of all, I'd like to thank you for giving us about an hour of your time. I know you're extremely busy. You've got a lot going on. Tell the listeners a little bit about Chief Deputy Andy Holden.
Well, I was born and raised in Stoddard County. Graduated from Dexter High School in 1993. 1997, I was actually placed on the Sheriff's Office Reserve Program as a non-commissioned officer, basically. Helped out in the jail, a dispatch, rode a lot with the deputies. 1999, I graduated the SEMO Law Enforcement Academy. And 2001, I was hired on full-time as a deputy sheriff.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden from the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office. Chief Deputy, if you don't care, explain to me a little bit about the program that you were placed on in 1997. You said you were working as a dispatcher or jailer. You also did a little ride-along. Kind of explain to the listeners what that was.
So back then, Steve Fish was sheriff then. Being a reserve for the sheriff's office, basically you're a volunteer at that point. It was totally unpaid position. I received zero pay for it. But it's for people who are interested in law enforcement, maybe want to be a dispatcher, maybe they want to be a corrections officer, maybe they want to be a road deputy. And it gives them the opportunity to come up and work alongside of the full-time people. They can learn the job, get a lot of experience, which I did. Like I said, I performed all those duties. Spent a lot of time riding with deputies, learned from a lot of the older guys.
And again, we're welcome to the Booth with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden from the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office. Chief Deputy, one thing a lot of people are not aware of, everybody is kind of aware of the sheriff. The sheriff's roles is the chief law enforcement officer in the entire county. Any type of law enforcement activity goes through the sheriff. But a lot of people don't realize what the duties of the chief deputy are, because, in Dunklin County, we were lucky enough to have Wally Pointer for years and years as the chief deputy. Now we have Bobby Jones. Before that, Joe Beth Patterson filled in a little bit and did a great job. Kind of explain to the listeners what the duties of the chief deputy of Stoddard County are.
As a chief deputy, basically I work directly under the sheriff. I make a joke a lot of times that my job is to make the sheriff look good, and I work really hard at that. When the sheriff's not at the office, maybe he's on vacation, maybe he's out sick, things such as that, I assume his authority basically in running and making decisions at the department. Carl and I have worked together a long time, since 1997 when I got on the reserves. He's one of the ones I rode with a lot. I've learned a lot from him, and I've just learned kind of the way he works, kind of his thought process, which that's what a chief deputy needs to know, is what the sheriff's thinking and have the same thought process and decision making most of the time. A lot of times I'll make decisions, but before I complete those decisions, I'll call the sheriff and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking, just to make sure I'm on the same page. And I'm going to say 99% of the time I'm on that same page.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to the Chief Deputy of the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office. That is Andy Holden. Andy's been the Chief Deputy since 2015, is that correct?
That is correct.
And it's my understanding was Sheriff Hefner, when he first got elected, did he have a chief deputy before you? Forgive me for not knowing that.
Yes, Tommy Horton.
And then you took over, and you're kind of explaining a lot of the duties as chief deputy. There's a lot more to it than just performing the duties of the sheriff's out of office. You've also do a lot of other stuff. Is that correct? You apply for grants and things of that nature?
That is correct. I apply for all of our grants. Basically, I'm over all the departments at the sheriff's office. So All of the deputies work under me. All of the corrections officers work under me. All of the dispatchers work under me. Basically, I take care of the entire department. Of course, I have department heads among those different divisions. We at the county, we've got about 50 employees at the sheriff's office. Now, the entire county only has about 100 employees. You know, that's countywide. This basically employed by the county. So we have half or over half of the county employees that work for us. I take care of the day-to-day operations, equipment purchases, take care of personnel issues, citizen complaints, update our equipment and technology. Also communicate with the judges a lot about inmates who are in jail, who may have medical issues, needing to be checked out or furloughed or that type of thing. I'm the one that makes those calls to the judges. And probably my biggest task that I have is preparing the budget yearly for the sheriff.
And again, we're on Welcome to Luke with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to the Chief Deputy of Stoddard County, Chief Deputy Andy Holden. And that kind of leads me to this thought, Chief Deputy, a lot of people don't realize one of the major budgetary issues in the entire county, which I think is appropriate, is that of the sheriff's office, because you have a ton of things you're responsible for. You run a jail, all enforcement of criminal violations in the county. You're in charge of all that. Also, you're in charge of safety for the courthouse. A lot of people don't realize that. So the budget is a large part of every county for the sheriff's office. Is that correct?
That's correct, and it even goes well beyond that. There's many things at the sheriff's office that we do the general public has no idea that we're tasked with. I call them unfunded mandates. Basically, the state or the federal government looks down at the local sheriffs and says, you're going to take care of this. One example are sex offenders. So the state and the federal government has said the sheriff is the one who is responsible for making sure all the sex offenders are registered and they're living where they're supposed to live. But with that being said, they offer zero compensation for that. You have to find the people to manage that, to track those people, to make sure those people are registered. They offer zero funds for that. Another thing, which is probably the biggest thing that people have no idea about, is called NIBERS, NIBERS. It's the federal reporting system. All of our crimes, all of our statistics are reported to the state, which is then reported on to the FBI. So the way they make you do this, which is also another unfunded mandate, is if we are non-compliant in our reporting, anybody within our jurisdiction receives zero grant dollars. So let's say for some reason we don't do our reporting and become non-compliant. That means any school district, any road and bridge, any city water grants that's going on, anybody that's within Stoddard County boundaries that's receiving grant monies, those grant monies stop.
So, Chief Deputy, it's almost like I remember whenever we had the big debate several years ago about lowering the presumed level intoxication down to 0.08. And they said, well, congratulations, states, you don't have to do this, but if you don't do this, then you get absolutely no money from the federal government for highways.
That's correct.
So they just continue to add more and more duties to you guys there at the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office without wanting you to give you any assistance. So the people you have just have additional job duties. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Like I said, the sex offenders, we've got 2 or 3 people that's trying to do that job. Some counties, some counties that you hear from, they have entire offices. They'll have 2 or 3 people, and that is their sole job, is to track, manage, and keep track of these sex offenders. The same way with the NIBERS reporting. They'll have 3 or 4 or 5 people. That is their sole job, is to make sure that those statistics are reported. And we, over the years, we have not ventured out into that. and it's really unfair a lot of times to our employees, because we do keep tasking these little tasks on people who have other jobs, and they're trying to do their normal jobs, and they also have to take care of these sub jobs, I guess you could call them.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden. Chief Deputy Holden's been Chief Deputy since 2015. He started with as a full-time deputy of 2001 of Stoddard County. Worked here in Stoddard County since that date. Prior to that, in 1997, he worked as unpaid, basically an intern. Graduated from the SEMO Law Enforcement Academy in 1999. Talking a lot about his duties as Chief Deputy for the current Sheriff Carl Hefner, and a lot about some of the unfunded mandates that's required for the Sheriff's Office with the NIBRS reporting, and also with the sex offender registry. And one thing it kind of makes me think of is, you remember when we had the concealed carry? We introduced that, and all of a sudden, hey, congratulations, Sheriff of your county. You're now in charge of concealed carry. Good luck to you. Wasn't that basically the instructions they gave you?
Absolutely, it was. The only upside to that was we did get a small amount of that fee when it was paid. So there is a small fee. We can't really consider that an unfunded mandate, because you do generate some funds from that. Those monies go into a special account that's separate from general revenue with the county, but those funds are specifically for concealed carry purposes, buying equipment, buying computers, things such as that. There are restrictions on what you can use that money for sometimes. And
Chief Deputy, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, I think a deputy position in Stoddard County is one of the premier law enforcement positions in all the county to have. Kind of explain, how many road deputies do you have right now?
Currently, we have 12. We have 12 actual road deputies. Now, we have other personnel. We have a DARE officer. I do have one or two supervisors that kind of look over things. Of course, they have some of those unfunded mandate jobs as well as looking over the deputies. We have 2 criminal investigators. We have 2 task force officers as well.
And one thing that you're also taxed with or responsible to do is you also have security for the Justice Center and the courthouse. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So, for those who are listening, again, we're on KDX AM 1590 talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden from Stoddard County Sheriff's Office. If you've not been to the Justice Center lately, you're required, of course, to go through a metal detector before you go to the court systems and things of that nature. You're required to provide that individual at the front, and you also have bailiff for 1 or 2 or 3 courts, depending on how many courts you have going that day, correct?
That is correct. And it seems like over the years, I guess it goes along with the crime. The courts are getting busier and busier. Used to be we had 1 court bailiff that I remember back, like I said, back in 97, 98, 99, and they were actually Division I court was still upstairs in the old courthouse. You had 1 court bailiff. That's all you had. It's progressed now into we have a full-time court bailiff. We have a full-time security officer who sits at the front desk. But again, we have some of those supervisors, some of the road deputies. They're tasked with, hey, you know what? We get a phone call. We have a visiting judge coming in. We have 2 courtrooms going on. We need another person over here to help bailiff court. Somebody's got to stop what they're doing, go over there and help bailiff court.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden from the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office, who's gracious enough to give us an hour of his day today. Talking about the numerous amount of responsibility he has as the Chief Deputy, basically. Chief Deputy, one thing that it always amazes me is not only are you in charge of the security, 1 bailiff to kind of help monitor the courtroom, then you've also got to move prisoners back and forth from jail efficiently and effectively, so that way the courts can kind of keep moving as well.
That's correct. And a lot of times we use our corrections officers for that, if we have enough available. If not, again, some of our road deputies, some of our supervisors, either myself or the sheriff sometimes, we're tasked with moving the inmates. But now with that being said, we have just recently started using video arraignment, video court, which means in certain circumstances, those inmates never have to leave the confines of the jail. We have a specific room. They can see the judge and have some of their hearings over video.
And I think that would be one thing that's very important for the judges and the prosecutors and the attorneys. Of course, how attorneys are. We always want to have it our way, or we think that we're complete. But I think for the safety of everyone involved, if we could get more on board with saying, hey, if it's just for an arraignment or if it's just for a case review or things of that nature, there's no need to bring these people across the street with the possibility of inclement weather, things of that nature, when we could do this all on video. Don't you think, Chief Deputy?
Absolutely. It helps our liability as far as the county goes, because all it takes is one slip and fall by an inmate, whether the ground being wet or icy, which happens all the time. Then the county's responsible for that medical bill or whatever it may be. But it's also security. It's safer for the inmate. You never know, depending on what the case is. You could have people wanting to hurt that inmate. You could have people trying to hurt the officer who's walking the inmates back and forth. But yes, some of the as you said, some of the maybe status hearings and things like that, that's what we're starting out using the video arraignment for.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden from the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office, talking a lot about his duties, how long he's been with the Sheriff's Office, which, kind of slipped up on me. I did not realize, if you're like me, Chief Deputy, I think that I'm about 25 and I realize I'm 52, and I think, 20 years ago, that was like 2000, and I'm like, oh, my goodness, time flies when you're having fun. And Chief Deputy, one thing that I've noticed in my 25 years of practicing law is criminals and the crime level has changed tremendously, hasn't it, in your opinion?
It really has. I don't know. I mean, as far as I look back, we've always had violent crime. I'm not saying crimes are getting any more violent, but it seems like maybe a little more prevalent. But probably the big increase is twofold. One is child sex crimes, and I really don't know if it's happening more often. I really suspect it's not happening more often than it used to. I really suspect that it's just being reported more than what it used to be, and I think that is due to a lot more public interaction with law enforcement. These kids are more comfortable talking to law enforcement. They see that we're not bad people. I think that allows them to open up sometimes, not necessarily to us, but then they feel more comfortable about telling their story about somebody hurting them or something like that.
And you talked earlier, and it kind of leads me to the next point of, you indicate that you have a DARE officer. I think you also have some school resource officers who are in certain schools here in Stoddard County, and just the ability to see those police officers, interact with them on a daily basis, I think, as you say, would make you feel, because, it's almost like, if I know that I have kind of a relationship, I feel like I can tell them, because, the sex crimes there's such a stigma to that. And a lot of people don't want to open up about it and explain to it because of the trauma and the things of that nature. So I will commend you on the Stoddard County with the school resource officers in the DARE program. I know that you're very fond of that DARE program because I think you've won a lot of awards for the DARE program. Is that correct?
Well, I haven't personally, but I will say what we're talking about is very near and dear to my heart, because back in the early 90s and back in the early 2000s, when I started at the Sheriff's Office, we were about enforcing the law. We had very, very little public interaction, what I call positive public interaction. And I would say over the last 15 years, being in the position that I have been in and had the ability, and that's really the way law enforcement is moving, is having more either neutral or positive interaction with the public. And I've taken that, it's really close to my heart that I've been the one to set up at these fairs to get us a booth, to be able to just meet people, not because they've called us to come, for them to come and see them because something tragic's happened, but I can stand down at the Stoddard County Fair or the Puxico Homecoming or even my people. I can't attend every one of them, but I like to attend all I can. But me having either myself or some of my people there just to shake hands, have conversations with people, not because something tragic has happened, and I really love that. I enjoy that, and I think that's opened our sheriff's office up to the community.
And again, we're going to welcome the Loop with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden from Stoddard County Sheriff's Office, talking a lot about, just having some positive impact and relationships with law enforcement. One thing, and I'll talk, you and I personally, I think it might have been 2 years ago, I think I was doing the Bloomfield Christmas tournament. I think I was calling a game for YHC. I saw you at the hospitality room. We had a nice conversation. I talked to the officers there. And it's good just to be able to say everybody is just a human being. We're just all trying to do our jobs and get along. And there's some bad actors out there. We can't deny that. There's some bad actors out there. And when they are out there, then the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office is going to do what they need to do. But you have to understand that law enforcement is there for your benefit. They're there to help you out. They're not, as some people say, we're not trying to get you. Well, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, there's nothing to get, correct?
Correct, absolutely. Like I said, I work the road. I worked the road as just a road deputy for many, many years. And I seen that as I met with people, it's because I had been called there because somebody had broken into their house. It was something very traumatic, or it had been some type of a domestic assault situation, or some type of a child abuse situation. Well, emotions run high, and that's not the interaction that I always want. We want to be there for the people who need us, but I want people to also see that we are human, that we do care outside of our job. That's really what I'm looking for.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Loop with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden from the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office. And, Chief Deputy, one thing I'll say is I enjoy whenever I'm driving around Stoddard County and I may drive by Rampley's or I may drive by the McDonald's at Advance or down here at the burger place at Bloomfield or the Hickory Log in Dexter or, Granny Lou's in Bernie. Seeing a police officer stop, talk, get out of his patrol car, just saying, hey, how's everything going? How are you doing? Do you guys need anything? If you need anything, here's my cell phone number. Give me a call. It's almost like community policing. Instead of having 12 road deputies, you now got thousands.
Correct. Absolutely.
So, again, we're welcome to the Loop with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590. Chief Deputy, tell me a little bit of how law enforcement has changed in the last 25 to 30 years, in your opinion. And I know that's a loaded question. There's a lot there. But just kind of, let's talk a little bit about what you think.
Yeah, well, the big change is technology. In the late 90s, early 2000s, we didn't have the internet per se like we do today, which is good and bad. Technology has helped law enforcement. It's given us many tools, and I can get into those here in just a few minutes. But it's also opened up access for the criminals. They use the internet just like we do to solve crimes. They use the internet to facilitate crimes and commit crimes. That's probably the biggest change. Another thing is just the increased calls for service. We're running about 14,000 calls for service a year through our dispatch. That's a lot. That's a lot of calls for service. Our case reports, we're taking about 1,000 reports, physical reports that some deputy has to sit down and type. And some of those reports are very extensive. They're not just to sit down for 10 minutes and type a report. They're weeks or month-long investigations, that's pages and pages long. The bookings into our jail, we're up 900 to 1,000 bookings into our jail a year. There's just lots of increases throughout the 25 to 30 years since I've been there.
And again, we're on Welcome to Luke with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden from Stoddard County Sheriff's Office. And Chief Deputy, we were talking a little bit about a story, talking about the internet, and I know you and I were kind of speaking about this, but there was a burglary that happened in a school in the county. Kind of explain to the listeners a little bit about, one thing I think I preface this with is we live in a generation in which when I call someone, I think that something should happen immediately, which is not always the case. People will call and say, I can't believe it. And you're like, ma'am, this is the first I've heard of it. Please let me gather some information. Explain a little bit about this, because I think this is one of the most fascinating stories you've told me in a long time. A little bit about that burglary and theft at the school.
Yes. So earlier in the year, it may have been last year, I can't really remember the exact time, one of our local schools here in our county, it got broken into. There was a theft, several hundreds or thousands of dollars, as well as some other things. My guys worked on it very hard. We processed the scene. We interviewed administration at the school. We interviewed children. We interviewed teachers. We interviewed tons and tons of people. Really, we're getting nowhere. The case just kind of went stagnant on us, I guess you could say. Until recently, we got a message through. We have many avenues to receive messages as law enforcement officers, but we had received a message through one of our information sharing sites that a guy in Iowa was found crossing state lines and breaking into schools, which really fit with what happened with us. We got to working on that. Actually, the school resource officer at that school started working on that when he got that information, and through GPS technology, as well as what we call license plate readers, or LPRs. Through GPS, license plate readers, and cell phone technology, we placed this guy from Iowa, who's actually in custody in Iowa, at that school and leaving the school shortly after the crime had been committed, which I believe the feds are going to pick up that case and run with it, because it was a multi-state crime that had been occurring.
And again, we're on Welcome to Luke with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden. Chief Deputy Andy Holden has been a Chief Deputy since 2015. He's been an officer with the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office since 2001, in which he was hired full-time. And that kind of goes hand in hand, Chief Deputy. One thing that I'm so excited to know is when towns tell me that we have what's called those license plate readers. We have cameras at stoplights. I can't tell you the number of crimes that have been solved simply because, and also cell phones with the GPS and things of that nature. It's simply solved because, how are you going to explain that your cell phone was here, your car was here at exactly the time this takes place? I mean, coincidences happen, but so the technology is so advanced. And one thing I also think is very interesting is you can take these DNA swabs. You can put them in a database. You may not get anything 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years later. You may get a hit, solve a cold case, something of that nature. The technology is absolutely amazing nowadays.
Yeah, it's unreal. It really is. You were just talking about DNA swabs. Actually, this week we got a hit from the crime lab on a burglary from 2 or 3 years ago, where we had collected blood that had been left at the scene. We got a hit on who it was. We have to do more investigation, but we know who the suspect is now. But you're talking about this technology, and it's really funny you mentioned that, because I got a call the other day. People's always calling trying to sell you stuff, sell you technology. But I got a call from this company that wanted to sell us this technology that would offer us, tell you where to go work traffic for speeding cars. And it really piqued my interest, which, of course, we don't do that a lot. But I said, how does this work? How do you get this information? Well, it's real-time information, and you can look on a map and see the hot spots of speeding cars. I said, how are you getting this information? And this company told me they receive this information somehow. I don't really know how, from the GPS in your car, the GPS in your cell phone, anything that's got a GPS unit. Somehow they're selling this data to these companies, and they can offer that in real time on a map to show you where your speeding hotspots are.
And again, we're on Welcome to Luke with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden, talking a lot about technology, the advances in technology, and how it's helped law enforcement. Chief Deputy, whenever you first started patrolling back in 2001, I'm going to ask you this because I think you've done a good job of promoting this. Did you have a computer in your car?
Absolutely not. We had paper maps. That's what we had, was a paper map. There was no GPS. There was no per se cell phones like you carry around now that has Google Maps on it or whatever map company you use. You had a paper map, and when you learn how to read a paper map, it's very simple. But you would be surprised, these younger kids now, they look at a paper map and they'll just throw it down and they'll pick their cell phone up and type the address in. It takes them right to it.
And we both have kids. You have a son, I believe he's a little bit younger than me. I have an 18-year-old and I have a 21-year-old. And he always says, "Dad, I'm going to drop you a pin." And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm going to do the best I can. And that's kind of what we're going to drop a pin of where my location is. And it's just amazing. And again, we could talk about technology for hours and hours. But it's my understanding that now the patrol cars all have computers in them. Is that correct?
Yes. I hate to really give you a time frame, but it's been several years ago we started equipping our cars with computers. We recently upgraded to all new computers, but yes, that technology allows my deputies to see information in real time. This been received by dispatch, and as dispatch types in the radio log of what's going on at that call, they can see that immediately, as well as they're tracked by GPS. So my dispatcher can look up on a big TV screen and see where every deputy that's working is at, to make sure and send the closest deputy to a call, an emergency call, when need be.
And again, we're on Welcome to Luke with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden. The Chief Deputy's been with the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office since, we're going to say 97, full-time deputy since 2001, Chief Deputy since 2015. If you've never been to the Sheriff's Office or been to the Justice Center, stop in, say hello to the Sheriff's Office, say hello to everyone there. A lot of people, don't like to go places because they feel uncomfortable. You will not feel that way at the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office. They want to meet and greet as many people as possible. They're there to serve you. They're there to protect you, and they do a great job with that every day here in Stoddard County. Chief Deputy, I know that we've had a tough time here recently. We lost an officer to a to a motor vehicle crash and things of that nature. Kind of explain a little bit about Holden Duckworth, if you would.
Holden Duckworth, he had been with us almost a year. He was with Dexter PD before that, but he was a fairly new officer, and he was very squared away. Everything that he done, you just looked at him when he walked in. His uniform was squared away. You never seen a wrinkle. His boots were always shined. His duty equipment was spotless. He was just one of these guys that you could look at him and just tell that he was just that guy that was squared away. And actually, he had applied for and he was in the final stages of being accepted into the Missouri State Highway Patrol Academy. And we had planned on losing him to the Highway Patrol this January, actually. So we were, kind of preparing ourselves for that, but this obviously this motor vehicle accident changed things. And it's very sad. We lost another deputy last year prior, Darren Dixon. He was off duty, but had a heart attack at home and passed away. I think Bernie lost an officer. Dexter Fire lost one of their firemen. We're not supposed to have that in our community. And it's really tough every time it happens.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590. And I'm not going to try to turn this into something really political or things of that nature, but John Kennedy says, the senator from Louisiana, is it John? I call him John Kennedy, but what Senator Kennedy says, if you don't like a police officer in a time of emergency, then call a crackhead. And the respect that we should be giving to law enforcement is not where it needs to be. And I will apologize to that to you. But I think these first responders, firefighters, paramedics, law enforcement, they're out there every day putting their life on the line, and you never know 1 minute. So I thank them, and I thank you for everything you've done in that regard, Chief Deputy.
Well, thank you. And with that comment, I'd like to add a little something. People a lot of times don't really think about this, and I just want to bring it to everybody's attention. When you have interaction, when you call the sheriff's office or a police department or whoever you call for them to come and help you, and let's say that officer may be a little short, maybe he doesn't really seem like he cares for whatever reason, maybe he makes a smart comment. I'm not saying that's ever okay, but keep in mind, the citizens should keep in mind that we deal with death on a daily basis. We deal with these children who are abused, who live in horrible, horrible living environments. And you don't know 10 minutes before we came to your house to talk to you about your argument that you're having with over your neighbor and their dog. Maybe we just got done doing CPR on somebody who didn't make it. We're all human, and we all carry emotion. And they shouldn't carry that emotion over, but they do. Everybody would in that situation. So I just wanted to make people aware that, I'm not saying to excuse them. I always listen to complaints on my officers, and I try to correct things when I can. But you don't always know the whole story.
And again, we're on Welcome to Duke with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy of Stoddard County, Andy Holden. And, Chief Deputy, I know you're not one to toot your own horn, so I'm going to do it for you because I think it's very important. Obviously, law enforcement can't be law enforcement without money. And I know that you prepare the budget for the sheriff's office along with the help of the sheriff. But talk a little bit about the grants that you've applied for and what you've done while you've been Chief Deputy for Stoddard County.
Yeah, over the last 15 years, that is part of my duty, is applying for grants. And over those 15 years, the last time I figured it up, I think I was a little over $1 million worth of grant money that I had applied for and received for equipment or pay or whatever it may be through the sheriff's office. That's huge. That's huge for helping our equipment. That's huge for getting reimbursed for specific overtime. That's huge for whatever, because that's $1 million that the taxpayers not had to shell out, but we've got the advantage of getting equipment or getting some of the overtime that our people work reimbursed.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Loop with Darren Todd on KDX AM 1590. And Chief Deputy, that kind of leads me to the situation that I also like to talk about, that being the new jail that was recently constructed. I consider it a new jail. It looks like the construction was in 2019, 2021, not like we had a major event going on while that was occurring, correct, Chief Deputy?
Yeah. COVID was something during that time.
And one thing that a lot of people don't know is the sheriff's office didn't shut down, and the jail didn't shut down while they were building that new jail. Y'all were moving pieces. Kind of explain to the listeners how you did that, because I know that I'm amazed at how well the transition went. Kind of explain that to the listeners if you don't care.
Yeah, so the old jail was built in 1983, and then there was an addition in 1992 for a total of 28 beds. That means you could house 28 people. We averaged in the upper 80s or 90s, which was way, way, way overcrowded. So that's when we proposed this tax, got the tax passed, started construction on this jail. The new jail was constructed directly behind the old jail. So all of the construction was taking place while we still had inmates in our facility. And it wasn't until the new facility was complete, we moved all of our inmates over to that, then completely remodeled the old facility without ever having to outsource any housing or anything of our inmates, which becomes very, very costly to the taxpayers.
And again, we're welcome to Luke with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590. Talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden. Chief Deputy has been with the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office since 2001 as a full-time road deputy. 2015 is when he became Chief Deputy. Talking a lot about the over $1 million in grants that he has brought into the county as a result of his efforts. Talking a lot about his duties of not only being in charge of the road deputies, security for the courthouse, moving, being in charge of the jail, basically. There's a lot of moving parts that's going on as chief deputy. And, one thing that I'm kind of interested in is there was a new program that I think the sheriff was talking about, because a lot of the issues we seem to be seeing with a lot of criminals nowadays is not only extensive drug use, but also some mental health issues. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I remember back in the early 2000s, the state hospital was open at Farmington. When you had somebody with mental health issues, they, filled out or applied for the 96-hour commitment. You took these people up to the state hospital at Farmington. We're talking an hour and a half drive, drop them off, and they would actually do something for them a lot of times. I'm not sure what year that was closed down, but it was closed down. Then all of these local hospitals started basically accepting your mental health issue patients, which a lot of times now when you take them over there and drop them off at these local hospitals, if they say the right things, they're back out. They'll almost beat you back home. And we've also had them that's committed crimes that have mental health issues. Well, now we can't take them to the hospital to get them checked out or get the proper meds because they've committed crimes. They have to stay in jail. We can't release them because they're dangerous people. So then that creates issues on us.
And it almost leads us to the issue of not only are they in having issues, it's also the corrections officers trying to deal with these individuals who, if they were just properly medicated or things of that nature, may not be dangerous. But as you indicate, when someone's off their medication and they try to self-medicate with whatever they do, alcohol, drugs, illegal narcotics, it makes them a danger to everyone involved. And again, the state just suddenly decided, hey, good luck, you're now a mental health facility, correct?
Yep, another unfunded mandate.
And that's some of the stuff that corrections officers has to deal with, and also the deputies, and you may get 4 or 5 calls on the same person, and they're like, well, why don't we do something with them? I'm like, do you want us to put them in jail? We don't have a facility to send them to. But that's the kind of stuff that the sheriff's office kind of gets blamed for. Is that not correct?
That's absolutely correct. People, maybe they do have a mental health issue. They don't want to go to the hospital. They've not committed a crime. We can't just put them in jail because they have mental health issues. That's not what the jail's for. And if we don't witness those mental health episodes, our hands are kind of tied. Now, if we witness the mental health episode, or if people make certain statements, then we can force them to go to the hospital to get checked out or to get treatment, and we can even fill out the commitment order sometimes.
And again, we're on Welcome to the Booth with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden from the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office a lot about some of the duties that he's required. And that's one thing that I want a lot of the listeners to realize is this mental health issue is a major crisis that law enforcement is having to deal with that really, really, really needs to be addressed by the legislature. We really need to figure out what we're going to do with the mental health situation and what we can do to get these individuals placed in some kind of treatment facility, because as you indicated, the county jail is not where they need to be housed. Chief Deputy, in addition to all those other things, let's say if there's like a major storm or disaster, the sheriff's office also responds to that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Brings to mind the tornado that come through Dexter here. I'm I'll never forget it. Obviously, it wasn't working. I believe it was on a Sunday morning, if I remember correctly. And I woke up and I looked outside. I was like, boy, that looks bad. Of course, I didn't have any damage where I lived, but then I start hearing, over the radio. I turned my radio on and I started hearing that there's some storm damage. So nobody had to call me. I immediately put my clothes on. I grabbed my chainsaw. I got in my truck and I drove to Dexter. And the funny thing about that is it wasn't only me. There was about 4 or 5 of my people. Nobody had to call them. They knew what to do. They knew where to go. And we all met up here in town, and we began clearing streets so we could get emergency vehicles down those streets.
And also, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is if someone receives a 911 call, and it's an unresponsive person, you also have to go out there for CPR and first aid. Is that correct?
Yes, that's something else that's very near and dear to my heart. I have part of our onboarding process, whether you're a deputy or a corrections officer or a dispatcher, part of our onboarding process is everybody at the sheriff's office is CPR AED certified. We have AEDs in our building. The county has AEDs in the government building and the courthouse. But I want all of my people to be certified to use those and also have the tools to do CPR if need be. You never know when you're going to be walking down the street. You may be at Walmart. But recently, actually earlier this year, I had the ability, through one of my special funds, I purchased 12 AEDs, and I put an AED in every road deputy's patrol car. Many times, we're just out driving around, and EMS gets that call of someone who's unresponsive. A lot of times, we're close. We're going to respond to that. We get there. Well, before we bought those AEDs, all we could do is CPR. Now we also have the abilities to have the AED, or automated external defibrillator. And recently, beyond the 12 that I purchased, I got approved for a grant to buy 10 more, which is going to allow me to put one in every patrol car that I have.
And again, we're on Welcome to Duke with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden from the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office. A lot about his, one of his passions, obviously, is the AEDs, the CPR, the ability to give first aid. Because, as you indicated, a lot of times the Sheriff's Office will be on patrol, and they may be, on County Road 718, and it might be whatever, and it's right there because an ambulance will be housed. It'll have to get out. So I think that's a crucial situation for the sheriff's office, and I'm very excited to know that you do that. It kind of reminds me of a story. I don't know if you know Donnie Jenkins. Donnie was a former basketball player at Malden. He was also a basketball official who actually had a heart attack at Risco while he was officiating the game, and the AEDs was there. Yes. So I think, that's kind of one of the things. You never want to have that situation, but if it wasn't for that, he would not have made it. So
right.
That's some of the proactive things that you're looking at as Chief Deputy for Stoddard County, correct?
Absolutely. Another thing with that same grant that we're getting, the 10 more AEDs, we were approved to purchase a UTV, or a side-by-side. Earlier this year, when Scott County had the tornado went through, I can't remember the little town over there, we had a little bit of damage in our county over east of Bell City. Myself and 3 or 4 of my officers were over there. That's whenever I started hearing on the radio that they had a community hit in Scott County, and they were asking for anybody and everybody to come and assist because they had several people hurt, injured, and killed. Myself and about 3 or 4 of my deputies drove over to that area, and when I got there, you couldn't get but about a mile away from where the tornado actually went through. The only way you could get to where the tornado went through is you had to get out of your vehicle and take a side-by-side to where the people needed the help. And that got me to thinking that we have a very large county, and if we were to have that here, it would be nice to have that ability to have that side by side to transport people in and out, as well as many times we have lost children. People, children wander away from home, small children. We're running up and down the road. Maybe we need to go drive field roads. Maybe we need to drive out in the woods. We have lost elderly who have dementia. Many times we get called out for that. We're out looking for people. Mingo and Duck Creek is also partially in our county. A lot of times we've had lost hunters, hunters who are injured. Well, if you have no way to get out there and get somebody other than carrying them out on your back, that's what this UTV or side by side is supposed to be for.
And again, we're on Welcome to Luke with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, talking to Chief Deputy Andy Holden from Stoddard County Sheriff's Office. A lot about the Chief Deputy's role in helping run the Sheriff's Office here in Stoddard County, from the over $1 million in grants that he's personally applied for and helped receive for Stoddard County. Also, his day-to-day operations and just basically running the Sheriff's Office so it runs smoothly and effectively for the citizens of Stoddard County. We've got a few minutes here left, Chief Deputy. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are there plans? What are you looking forward to in the next 3 or 4 years as far as Chief Deputy Andy Holden?
I want to continue on with our upgrading of technology, our upgrading of equipment, keeping our officers safe, keeping our corrections officers safe. That's just my passion to keep my people safe, to keep the people in this community safe. I was born and raised here. I'm raising my kids here, and that's what I want, is just a safer community. And I have deputies who work for me who come from other communities, and they will tell you, they tell me quite often that the citizens of Stoddard County support their law enforcement like no other. They're just utterly amazed by the support that law enforcement gets in Stoddard County.
And again, we're on Welcome to Luke with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, winding down with the Stoddard County Chief Deputy Andy Holden. Chief Deputy, as we're looking down the road, I know that you've talked a lot about what you've been involved with. Is there something or a statement you'd like to leave us with as we're kind of winding down here today?
Yeah, I would just like to ask the public, at the end of the day, my job isn't just about enforcing laws. It's about protecting the people in this community, whether it's helping a stranded motorist, mentoring a young person, or responding to a crisis. And I'm proud to serve alongside a team of people with integrity and compassion. We're here for the community, and we're always listening. And thank you for giving me a chance to share a little bit about what we do at the Sheriff's Office. This is really important to me because I don't get this opportunity a lot to tell the things that we do at the Sheriff's Office. And I'm very proud of the things that we do at the Sheriff's Office. And I think this brings public awareness to kind of the things that's outside of what people typically see.
And again, we're on Welcome to Luke with Aaron Todd on KDX AM 1590, and Chief Deputy Andy Holden is gracious enough to give us about an hour of his day today. I can't express enough, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not had an opportunity to go to the Sheriff's Office, talk to law enforcement at the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office, talk to Chief Deputy Andy Holden or any of his deputies, make an effort to do that. They're outstanding men and women. The corrections officers, the personnel, the secretarial staff, the clerical are all amazing, do a great job. We're lucky to have them. And hopefully down the road, Chief Deputy will agree to come back and talk more. I'm excited that we got to talk a lot about things that a lot of people don't know about, like you indicated, simply because, only it seems the bad things are out there, but there's a lot of great stuff going on in Stoddard County and the Stoddard County Sheriff's Office.
Absolutely, and I do encourage each and every one of y'all to stop by and see me, stop by and see the sheriff, stop by and see whoever's working. Just stop by, not necessarily for me, but my staff. Just tell them thank you. People do that a lot, and it makes them feel great. And
on behalf of our guest, Chief Deputy Andy Holden from Stoddard County Sheriff's Office, and myself, Darren Todd, and my producer, Maureen Johnson, my executive producer, Evan Todd, I'd like to thank you for making us part of your day. I hope you have a great afternoon.